Welcome to the Springs in the Desert podcast. We're so happy that you're here with us. We're those friends that you can take with you wherever you are on the path of infertility. Welcome back, everybody, to the Springs in the Desert podcast. We're so glad you're with us. We are in a new season of the podcast, season 3. When you're listening to this, it'll be 2022, so that's exciting. New year, and seeing that it's January, maybe some of us took time off over the holidays. Hopefully we did. So we're maybe thinking about kind of getting back to work, getting back to our routine schedules. And so we thought this would be a good time to explore the topic of work from a few different angles, and particular challenges when it comes to work as it relates to the experience of infertility. So lots of things came up when we talked about this amongst our team and contributors. So we just thought that we would share some of the fruit of that with you, our listeners, just so you know you're not alone in these feelings and some of the challenges you might have. So today I'm really excited to have two of our previous podcast guests back. Stacey, you know, from many of our podcast episodes, and Abby's been on with us as well last year talking about womanhood. So we'll put that episode in the link to the show notes so you can hear a little bit of her background too if you want to go back and listen to that. But both of these wonderful women work in ministry. So in this episode, we wanted to talk a little bit about what that's like to work in ministry and some of the amazing gifts that come from that, and then also some of the challenges, especially as it relates to like the experience of infertility and maybe finding balance with work demands and marriage and just making all of that run along and serve God in the way that we're called to through all of that. So just to kind of open it up, maybe Stacey, you could go first. Just tell us a little bit more about some of the work you do outside of Springs in the Desert and all the stuff you do with Springs in the Desert. Just how you find spiritual fruitfulness in your work.
Thanks, Allie. I'm blown away by the fact that we're in season 3, by the way. Like, we have seasons now? That's so amazing. Okay. But besides that, I have been working as a youth minister at St. Charles Borromeo Parish in Fort Wayne for 8 years. And as I say that out loud, I've been reflecting a lot lately on how I never anticipated being like working full time for this long. I just didn't see that. Getting married at 23, I was not expecting that for my life. And so it's been really interesting dynamic, just sort of like letting the Lord continue to lead me deeper into this, into my career and as one of like calling, vocation, and ministry. And it's been in many ways just an incredible gift from him, even though at times I might not see it that way, but to be able to work and connect with young people. And I guess my title now is youth and young adult minister. So I also work with college students and young adults too. And that's a really beautiful gift. But yeah, it's just, it's wild to think about how I never imagined I would work, at least not full time, for the church for this long. And here I am, and I don't have any end in sight. So it's really a gift, through the journey of infertility to be able to work in this ministry with young people.
That's awesome. I love the way you said that. I think I can definitely relate to that. I don't work in ministry, but that idea that, I never thought I would, I always thought I'd be a stay-at-home mom or have my life would take a different toll once I got married. So I think a lot of our listeners can relate to that, that life just kind of looks a little differently than we expected in that way. So thanks for sharing that aspect of it.
Yeah.
And Abby, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Stacey.
I just thought of this too, that and I think that women such as myself and such as Abby, there's deeply a need for us working in the church, in like a parish, a church culture that's I'm not saying like this is bad or shameful or anything, but very much male dominated, and like they need our spiritual gifts and like those gifts in the workplace. And I've recognized that particular element of this calling, even more recently, in my work with male coworkers. I work at a parish that has more men working there, and priests and things like that too.
Yeah, 100%. I also work in the same diocese as Stacey, 2 hours away. I'm director of evangelization at my parish, and yeah, completely agree with what Stacey said. Like, there's such a need for women in the church. Slightly different. I definitely thought in my head, I would, get married, have kids, and continue working for the church. I'm definitely one of those people, like, um, I could never homeschool my kids. I don't think that I could ever like focus my intention on without having some sort of like kind of active apostolate in the world. And working in ministry has been such such a gift, such a way of being a spiritual mother in a really particular way. Even just one little story. It was Christmas Eve, and I went to midnight mass. And my husband and I had already gone to mass, but I really still wanted to go to midnight mass, and ran into a friend of mine who had just had her baby a few days ago. And like pretty much right at midnight, I was holding this like sleeping 6-day old baby and just like feeling so grateful in that moment. And we started talking about, I was joking how I wanted to put my hat in the ring for godmother status. And we just got to talking about like how many godchildren do you have? And I just said like, I feel like I have this just like infinite number of spiritual children. And to be a spiritual mom in this particular setting is just a really incredible gift. And even just to explore how has the Lord equipped me with charisms, like very particular ways that the Lord has anointed me to be, to be a mom, and to live out of like my bride status. It's just been really, really beautiful. Yeah, it's been a great gift, but there's definitely been some struggles too.
That's awesome. I love picturing what you just shared with your friend and the baby. That's really beautiful. So yeah, some of those struggles that you were just kind of talking about or hinting at, Abby, and what we spoke about before we started recording is that, especially in ministry, but I think this could apply for other vocational callings as well, that there can be a real struggle to find balance when like schedules aren't exactly, typical every day, or there's just like a lot of demand to share yourself with many people in different ways. So let's talk about that a little bit. Like, what are some of the struggles that you do have with finding that balance, and like, what are some ways that you're learning maybe to overcome it or to just like work through it? Start with Stacey, I guess.
Sure. There was a priest that asked me this summer. We had invited him to give a talk at our college ministry gathering, and he asked me, "Are you full time or part time?" And I looked at him and go, "I am more than full time." And he was like, "Good answer, good answer." And I think I'm sort of notorious for like my willingness to like um put aside things in order to, like make ministry happen and to make it thrive, while at the same time recognizing like it's so necessary and so good to step away and to take breaks. And so I'm sort of like a lot of working in ministry is event oriented, and so I'll like it's challenging because you put in all these hours, and then you really need to step away and to like focus in on your marriage and like catching up with laundry. And like March for Life, we take every year we take teens to DC from our diocese. We've taken as many as 500 people from Fort Wayne South Bend. That's just the high school trek.
That's awesome.
It takes like at least a week to recover because it's so exhausting. It gets harder every single year. But
You're getting old. I'm just kidding.
I'm getting old. But knowing like that it's so good, and Jesus like doesn't want you to constantly be like wearing yourself thin. And when I got hired to do youth ministry, I keep reflecting back the priest, Father Jacob Meyer, who hired me, he told me my number one job was to make sure I don't burn out, because the average lifespan of a youth minister is 18 months. And I mean, like, and this wasn't even covert, this was overt, because I was like, obviously leading towards marriage. I wasn't married yet. I think shortly after that is when I got engaged and then got married. And it was sort of like, at the parish I worked at, it was sort of like this joke of like, when's Stacey gonna stop working because she's gonna have kids, like, immediately. And it took a while, like a number of years before that kind of like fell away. But they were sort of expecting me, I don't think, to stay very long because of that reality. Sorry, I started like, I think the train of thought is going this direction, a totally different way from where I started what I was saying. But my point was just that need for balance. It's essential, and it's so easy when you don't have children at home to allow yourself, like, it's easy to be generous and to sacrifice time that you may, at least working with young people in youth and young adult ministry, that you may have imagined that you would spend with your family. It's easy to sacrifice that time. And so for me and my husband, we really have to, like, I have to consider my marriage, and it's a different thing than I would have imagined, because I thought that I would be like, managing children, whereas in this reality it's like, no, like, my husband needs just as much investment as caring for children might have been. And so keeping that as a priority when we sit down and look over our schedules together, and I schedule events for work and how many, like, the number of events I'm committing to, because when you're facilitating like middle school, high school, young adult, college ministry, so like that's a lot of nights that I could be working in any particular season. And so keeping that balance and focusing in on our marriage, and okay, so I've worked this number of nights, where's the time in my schedule that I can then take off, and we can spend time together, go on a vacation, or just like have dinner together, because I work nights a lot. And so sometimes we don't get to eat dinner for like 4 or 5 nights in a row if I'm crammed my schedule full that season, but it comes in waves. There's like seasons of busyness and seasons to slow down.
That's awesome. I'm so glad you brought that up. I think that's so relatable, because I think our culture, like, it's like there's like 2 extremes, I guess, we kind of have, where it's like you're either like the single person who's just like doing everything, having fun with their friends, or you're like knee deep in parenthood. And so there's just not a lot of emphasis, I think, on like the marital aspect, like how you need to nurture that even on like a daily basis, with like just connecting over dinner or whatever it is. And I don't know, I think we need to talk about that more, like how important that is, because you are a family together and you do need to like have that time to like rejuvenate. So
we live about 8 minutes from where I work, and like on weeks where we don't see each other a lot, I'll sometimes, even if it's just an hour that I drive home in the evening just to like have FaceTime with my husband, I'll drive home. So I mean, it's like a less than 20-minute car ride just to spend an hour with him, but I think it's worth it when it's like night after night in a row that you aren't getting to spend together.
Yeah, that's awesome. How about you, Abby? What are some of the challenges that you face, and what are you doing to work through them?
One of the things I'm doing to work through them right now, despite the fact that I'm in my office, it's kind of an illusion, is take this week off. This is a week that I am supposed to be off work, praise the Lord, between Christmas and New Year's. And so I'm only here because there's good internet at my office. That's the only reason I'm here. But to just take time off and to really honor it, to take a day off, particularly for those who work on Sundays. I work on Sundays. And so I make Thursdays my Sabbath. And that's my day where I'm trying to be really intentional about having more time for prayer than other days of the week, more time for rest. I sleep in, exercise. Those are incredibly crucial things, and also things that like I'm encouraging our pastor to do, who like also is a spiritual father and is living this life without kids at home and can very easily run into this temptation to just like work incessantly. um, Two things that I have been really convicted about as we were prepping for this episode is we have a strong tendency, I think, as women battling infertility to make an idol out of our work, and to invest more time in our work, not because we need to, but because we feel this kind of like not Holy Spirit compulsion to invest so much time. And so for me, some of that goes back to this like root wound of self-reliance of like, okay, if I don't do it, then nobody else is going to do it. And if I don't invest all this time in this person and don't take a break and never like take a beat, then like their salvation is going to be at risk, or the parish is going to fall apart if I like take my eye off the ball for a second. All of that is like pride and this lie of self-reliance. One other thing that I have caught myself doing a lot is this kind of guilt about taking rest. Looking at my coworkers who have kids, and I'm like, well, I don't deserve to have as much time off as them because they need the rest even more than I do, and so I should just not take rest. Or again, this is kind of like that self-reliance creeping up again. Like I should do part of their job, not out of this like pure compassion or like good work ethic, quote unquote, but because I feel like I have to make up because I have this lack in my life, or I'm using work to kind of fill this void. And I think to what Stacey's sharing, I think at least for me, my temptation is actually when things are hard to pour even more into my work and like run away from my husband a little bit, because that like empty home, quiet time can be just kind of like this like resounding kind of silence that's really difficult. And so I think that's why prayer is just so crucial. Like prayer, just like our daily intimacy with Jesus, our prayer together with our spouse, just so important, because yeah, it's so easy to let our spouse become even like someone we resent in times of rest, or like in the holiday season. Like my Christmas was not nearly as exciting as like my coworker who has 4 kids at home. And so how do I keep myself from going into this comparison game? How do I keep myself from kind of like spiraling in guilt of like, okay, I'm just like playing solitaire at home right now. Like, what else should I be doing? Like, I'm not going to work, but like, what else should I be doing? Yeah, like prayer is just like so crucial in those moments. Yeah, for Jesus to just give him permission to speak truth over those lies.
Thank you so much for that honesty and for sharing all that. I found that so relatable too. Like, and for me, I think it's like an identity issue too. It's like finding your own value in what you do versus who you are. Like as a daughter of God, I think that's a temptation that, particularly with infertility, can be difficult because, you know, motherhood seems like so much action and doing and giving of oneself. And so to take that time to rest when we don't have children, yeah, it's like, it seems almost, I don't know, like we shouldn't do that because we need to be doing. So either in our job or if, you know, raising children. But the fact is, like, it's good to rest. Like God wants us to have these times of rest and quiet and just to be with him, like you're saying, in prayer. So yeah, I just really appreciate you sharing that.
I just thought of this while she was speaking also, like the need to save our best selves for our spouse, because that's like sort of like just like we save like for the Lord, right? We present the Lord. Well, not that we shouldn't bring all the dirt and the garbage to Jesus in prayer, like that's good, but it's like when you establish a prayer time or prayer routine, like making it intentional and not like your most tired moments of the day, which I sometimes do fall asleep praying, but whoops. But like in that same sense, like, you know, like my husband is this gift, and like I want to be a gift to him in return. And so like it brings us so much joy to like find time to make plans together, and just as much so that I plan for work, like even more so ought I be planning time with my spouse, and planning trips and things to do together. And so just that need to like be gift to your spouse is necessary, and you can't like put that aside at the expense of like your vocation with your spouse. I don't know, just there's just this need to continue pouring into um and finding ways to relate to each other in that gift.
Yeah, definitely. That was well put. Um, Maybe to kind of like close out the conversation a bit, if anyone's listening who maybe works in ministry and is just feeling overwhelmed, feeling some of these pressures to work without breaks, or struggling to find time to connect with their spouse, or anyone who works in like a vocational calling that's like really demanding that they love what they do. Like, what are just some practical suggestions or tips that you have? You've named some of them so far, but just things that pieces of wisdom that you would pass along to someone in that situation. You said prayer. I think that's a good place to start.
Definitely.
Finding that daily time.
Abby said prayer, and I think prayer with your spouse is so necessary. We have it part of our daily prayer routine. And another thing we love to do together is to plan like trips and or just like date nights. Those are so fun, and to get to like choose to like get dressed up for your spouse, or like when you're like, I don't have a reason to, but let's do it anyways. My husband, and it's kind of funny because my husband's like prefers basketball shorts and t-shirts to anything. And we've known each other since we were in high school, so I've like taught him how to like dress up and look nice. And like we went a couple years ago to Macy's and bought him some nice suits for like weddings and things, and now he like loves to wear them. And I got him a new pair of dress shoes for Christmas, and he was so excited. And but like finding things like that to like uh to plan things together, to present the best of yourself to your spouse, to do like plan a holy hour together, or daily prayer time, or read. Someone gave us a psalter of the Psalms last year, and we sit down and read that together regularly. Those things, all of those things. But Abby, I think you wanted to share some things too.
Yeah, one thing I've just been thinking a lot about as we've been talking is just, we talk about spiritual motherhood, and but I think like thinking about like what it means to be like daughter is just really crucial in rest. Right, like when it comes to Jesus, like we cannot hope to be fruitful in our marriages, in our apostolates, if we are not like constantly running back to the one who calls us beloved and like hearing his voice. I've been rereading a lot of Henry now, and so that's probably part of why all of this is popping up. He's great. You should read Life of the Beloved if you haven't read it before. And just the being loved by Jesus, but I think like identifying like, can we find some like an older woman, like a woman who can just like love us as a daughter? I just think about like how healing it is to have, just kind of like a second mom who just like cares and loves on me. And also like sisterhood, again, like how crucial it is to rest in those female friendships, and having someone who, just to have like a wine night, like not sometimes I know probably Stacey struggles with this too. It's like, okay, I'm a young adult, like I'm doing young adult ministry. Like at what point does this like cross over from like friend to to work? Sometimes that balance is kind of tricky.
I actually have a girls' night out that's with just like my girlfriends that like it's sort of exclusive, and I can't believe I'm saying this on a podcast now. I have like a secret girls' night out group because of this very thing, you know, like to get together with just my immediate friends, you know? Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. And for women that are like pouring into us as well as we're pouring into them. Yeah, just super, super important. Yeah, I think too, Stacey touched on this a bit, just like date nights, just slotting out a time for a date night, having an occasional business meeting, I think is a super important thing too. And yeah, just being able to just kind of like, what's that line from Hosea? Like I will like allure her, like draw her into the wilderness and like speak tenderly to her.
Yes.
You know, like, do we give our spouses permission to do that? Do we give Jesus permission to just like speak tenderly to us? Knowing that like, yeah, if we're doing that, like we're going to be fruitful. Our marriages are going to be fruitful. Our apostolates are going to be fruitful. And we don't have to, yeah. And when we know that we're beloved, we don't have to, yeah, how do you say, like, again, I'm going to quote Henry now, and you can edit this out. Yeah, he just says like, I can like encourage and console and admonish without fear of rejection. And I can receive affirmation without using it as a proof of my goodness. And I think like with work, it's just like so easy when we're not in that like constant communion with Jesus and with our spouses too. Like if we're placing our identity in like our output, if we're placing our identity in like performing for the Father, instead of being his daughter, then it's going to be really easy to be afraid of rejection because we've placed so much weight on our work. Like, okay, if that crumbles, then like my whole life falls apart. Like that temptation, or also like, I'm using this as a proof of my goodness, because if I'm fruitful in my work, then I can point to all those naysayers who are talking about how I don't have kids, and I can be like, well, here, and like I can prove how good I am if I do this. And like neither of those approaches are the Father's desire for us, like even more than to be mother, like he wants us to be daughter. And so, yeah.
That reminds me of Mother Teresa. Jesus does not want you to be successful. He wants you to be faithful. Mm-hmm. And at the end, all that matters is our faithfulness, and our faithfulness to him, our faithfulness to our spouses above our work. Yeah, so good.
Well, I think that is a beautiful place to end the conversation, with those words of encouragement from Mother Teresa, and just, reminders that you're a beloved daughter of God. No matter what's going on in your work life, challenges, or anything else you're dealing with, that's your most important identity. So we are so glad that you guys joined us today for this episode. Stacey and Abby, thank you so much for coming back on and having this discussion. This has been really wonderful. And I think we need to maybe have another one on rest, just on rest, and like how important that is, and maybe some practical ways to live that out as well. So join us again. We'll be back in 2 weeks to have a slightly different take on this topic of work. We'll be talking with some other women who don't work in ministry and just kind of seeing a different angle of this topic. But as always, find us on our website, and we're just so happy to walk with you, and just know that God loves you, and so do we. Bye. Thank you so much for joining us for this Springs in the Desert podcast episode. If you have a minute, please rate and review us so that we can reach more listeners. Check out our social media pages on Facebook and Instagram, and go to our website, springsinthedesert.org, where you can sign up for our newsletter and hear about more things that we have going on. Most importantly, remember that God loves you so much, and so do we.